Hey, it's Mazzy. Welcome back. Pink Floyd, Pompeii. Boy, was I excited about this film and record and Blu-ray and IMAX coming out. This is a review. This is the review. Now, a couple months ago, I got up early and ran to my video room, record room down here, library, when I heard the announcement that this was coming out. And there's a link below. That was a pretty popular video, so check that out if you want to get more in-depth what I knew at the time. But now I've heard the record, I've watched the Blu-ray several times and the record several times, and I saw the IMAX film presentation in actually Bellevue, right across Lake Washington from Seattle. I went with some friends, and we had a great time. And I'll get into that. I'm going to review all the components here. Not deep dive, but let's go. Let's go. Now, Pink Floyd, I love Pink Floyd, and this is the period. The sweet spots for me is, aside from, okay, of course we love Syd Barrett. That's almost should be like a separate thing. Like let's put that aside, and we don't want to forget Syd Barrett, but let's put that aside. But from 1968 through 72 and 73, okay, let's leave in Dark Side of the Moon. We can go beyond another day, another time, but that is the sweet spot for me. And what I like about this period especially, like 70, 69, 70, 71, is how tight this band was as a band. And if you saw them live in those years, obviously going back from the psychedelic years, going to the UFO Club in London, through the post-Syd Barrett years with David Gilmour, and live records and live recordings, everything from 1969's Umaguma. I used to say Umaguma. I'm leaving it at that. This is it. This is a killer. And this Wonder Hypnosis cover. And some of the songs that are on here, this is the set that they would continue on doing. In fact, the live, aside from the opening track on here, Careful with That Axe, Eugene, is on here. Saucer Full of Secrets. Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun. This is in the DNA of Pompeii. Now, here is the vinyl. It's a double pocket gatefold, but this is the Steven Wilson mix, and I'll get into that as well. But let me just physically show you. They have a poster that comes with it of the movie. I guess it's a replica of the original poster. There you go. Let's float gently off to the side right now. And here is this beautiful record. Now, they come in these paper inner sleeves. Careful with that axe, Eugene. Set your controls to the heart of the sun. And this was filmed in Pompeii, at the ruins of Pompeii in the amphitheater in Italy. This was a movie that came out in 1972, filmed in 1971. And there's a lot of crossover here of music. Obviously, in that previous video, I talk about how a lot of the music at the time and the tours they were doing at the time was a result of metal, which is probably one of my top three records for a lot of reasons. And the centerpiece, of course, is the tune Echoes here. And that really bookmarks the movie and the vinyl version as well. And the Blu-ray, of course, which is basically more or less a reproduction of the IMAX film, but with great sound. And now there is an Atmos, a 5.1 surround thing, but I'm not set up for that. But the sound of it was killer, and I blasted it in my stereo. When I saw the movie, I loved the IMAX presentation. The restoration is impeccable, and I'll get into that too as we go along. I felt the theater I saw it in wasn't loud enough. Sometimes they bombard you with the volume, but I could have jacked it up another 2 or 3 notches at that particular theater. I've heard people talk about it, how it was really loud and good in a good way. So far I haven't heard anyone that were blown away sound wise, like with the Zeppelin of being too loud, which is great. You like loud rock and roll, you like loud music, but you want it balanced really well. And the mix in the theater was spectacular and wonderful, as is the vinyl version on this. Now, 2 record set, again, the Steven Wilson cut. This is beautifully pressed. Mine is as quiet as you can get, almost. At the very beginning, when it opens up with Pompeii intro into Echoes, if you know the music, it's very quiet and you hear a slight crackle, but hardly anything. I have that also on my metal record because that opening part of Echoes is just so quiet. But if that's something that bothers you, obviously the Blu-ray is a way to go. You get the 2-channel as an option, or you can do the Atmos mix on that. Now remember, Steven Wilson talks about this. The Atmos mix, he only had certain things to work with. I think he had 4 mono ins of the 4 instruments at Pompeii. And so he can only do so much in terms of effects and ups and background things. But I don't really care. For me, music, 2-channel is a way to go. I used to have a surround system way back with DVD-As and SACDs, and surround mixes were happening, mostly for movies. And when I came to Seattle, I finally dismantled it. When it's music for me, it's 2-channel. But I know there's a segment of you out there that like the surround, and my guess is the Blu-ray is great. But I did hear it beautifully in the IMAX in the theater, and I thought that was really, really well done. But aside from that, this is an excellent pressing and an excellent package of the vinyl version on Sony Music, Pink Floyd at Pompeii. Now, a couple other things, just a little details, because people have asked, people who have seen the movie who haven't read anything about the Pompeii film, there were overdubs. Pink Floyd was brought to Pompeii to do this movie. I think they shot it over 4 days. They only did, I think it was 4 songs. The songs were the Echoes. Now, part 1 and part 2, and that's another thing that people question. Why was Echoes split into 2 parts? Well, because of the director. That's the vision of the director for the movie. And this is essentially a soundtrack. So if you haven't seen the film, you should check out the Blu-ray. Aside from the little intro during the credits and that kind of the mood into the film, Echoes Part 1 opens it. And Echoes is about, a 28-minute piece. So you have the first half of Echoes, then you get into Careful with That Axe, Eugene, a song that was only a B-side originally, and then it turned up on the live album on Omagoma, and then of course it was on Relics as well. But also, Zabriskie Point, the soundtrack, they redid it for this soundtrack, for this film, but the name was changed. It's called Come In, Number 1, Your Time Is Up. You remember when you rent those boats out there? It's a very British thing. I think that was quoted by Ringo in Hard Day's Night. Remember that? Okay. But I digress here. And then, of course, Saucer Full of Secrets, which is from this album. The last little kind of connection, really, to Syd Barrett, aside from when they would write about Syd on Wish You Were Here. And then Set the Controls to the Heart of the Sun, a 10.5-minute version. Just love it. Now, side C goes into One of These Days, which is one of my favorite things, again, from metal, with that intense vocal overdub of Nick Mason's One of These Days I'm Gonna Cut You Into Little Pieces. So violent. Same with that Axe, Eugene. So violent. And this band is so ethereal and beautiful. And what I love about this, and of course, over the last couple months, I've been playing this period almost nonstop with Pink Floyd. And, they're about the softness, the intro that could go on for minutes, right? And then that slow build up to that screaming or intense musical crescendo. and then they kind of ease back down and log out in a way, if you will. And I love how in Echoes, it starts out with that ping, ping, and the movie ends with that ping, ping of echoes. And like a submarine. That's what I thought at the time. It's a submarine, that ping of sonar in a submarine. And I just think it's gorgeous. And I love the harmonies on there. One thing I learned, I didn't realize that Rick Wright was the harmony vocal on Echoes with David Gilmour. For some reason, I thought it was double-tracked Gilmour. So let me interject this in terms of my presentation here. I'm going to really mix this up. I'm going to mix my review and my feedback on the vinyl, on the Blu-ray, on the IMAX, and keep going back around, because I think these all kind of need to coexist together. That's what I love about it. Now, I know there are people that are on into the vinyl that'll probably just get the Blu-ray, and that will suffice for them, and that's fine. But I'm going to go back to the vinyl here. Now, and I'll talk about the Blu-ray content in a minute. But on side 3, as I said, you have One of These Days, which I love, from Metal. Then it goes into Mademoiselle Knobs, and that is a re-recording of Seamus from this album. That's the bluesy number with the barking dog. Different dog, different recording here, Pompeii. And it's sort of a humorous highlight in the film this time when they're in the studio. It's a studio segment in the motion picture, because all this movie was not only shot at Pompeii. There's a segment with the dog, and Roger Waters is doing his guitar bit, and David Gilmour's playing the harmonica, and Rick White is kind of holding and petting the dog and holding the microphone to the dog as the dog whines and really sings. And if you know that number, you know what it's like. And it got a good chuckle at the end of that segment in this movie. And then it goes into Echoes Part 2, as I said earlier, that ends the film. Now, on the vinyl version, side D, the 4th side, has Careful with That Axe, Eugene, An Alternative Take, and then Saucer Full of Secrets, unedited. That's 12 minutes, 45 seconds. So you have extra tracks on here from the motion picture, from the Pompeii segment, I believe, for the most part. One thing I need to notate also here is this is not really a live record. This is Pink Floyd at Pompeii. It's not Pink Floyd live at Pompeii. They're using Pompeii basically like a studio, an outdoor venue with no audience whatsoever. Obviously, the crew, apparently there were some kids that snuck in and let them sit in the back. That would have been a great thing to see and hang out some of those days there. So again, side 4 has some of those alternate versions. And that's the way they made this movie. They would do the songs over several times. And during that period, Adrian Mabin, who directed this beautifully, I think, was kind of in sync with what the European directors were doing at the time. Think of Antonioni with Zabriskie Point, or early back to 1966 with Blow Up, and Roman Polanski. There's a lot of these long panning shots. They took their time. There's a lot of shots in the film of these Italian Pompeii artifacts, overlays. I mean, definitely it's a film of its time. It's dated only because this is 1971, and the way films were directed of composites. You know, these were composites that were originally done at the time. Now, I don't know if they actually rebuilt this. They found the negative, the cut negative of this, and this is beautifully restored. Now, I did, as a sake of comparison, pull out my big box set, the first box set from 1968 to 1972, and this set of DVDs, Blu-ray, CDs, and I watched the Pompeii version in here. And I tell you, the Pompeii version of the Blu-ray and the restoration is incredible. As clear as it's ever going to get. Now, of course, this is dated. This is film, so you don't want anything too sharp. In fact, some people I've read that are complaining that this isn't a 4K. I don't know if it needs to be a 4K. And in fact, sometimes there's DVDs I have that I like better than Blu-rays, because sometimes it could get too pristine and too clinical, and this doesn't have that. The color correction is beautiful. In fact, one thing I noticed comparing the version in here to the version in here. There's a segment when they're doing one of the songs, and it's shot from behind the mixing console, and it slowly pans up. And in the original, the older version I have here, the console is dark. It's almost like there's no fill on it, no fill light on it, and it pans up, and then you see the gong, and of course the band laid out in the middle of the arena there, the amphitheater there. But it's really opened up here just enough, bringing the exposure up, obviously in post-production, working beautifully to bring that up, to color correct it, just to fill it in enough. It's not overly bright, and it sort of pans up. There are a couple of shots where it pans up, and I just love that. I love the slow pans behind the Pink Floyd London amp boxes, speaker cabinets. I just love that track, and obviously when they pan back at the beginning and at the end during echoes and several other scenes, you see the track they used, almost like that semicircle around the front of the band. And I just think I like that they didn't try to hide cameras or the lights behind them or the reflectors up in the seat areas. I just love that. I think it's done beautifully. The restoration is incredible. When I listened to this and watched the film version on the Blu-ray, I blasted it. And in a way, I like the sound better than the IMAX, because the IMAX just wasn't loud enough for me. But that was just probably my theater experience. They should have jacked it up a little bit. And I jacked it up, and I don't have a subwoofer, and it sounded really good. Steven Wilson does a really great mix, and it improved over the version on this. There's better bass, better bottom, but it's not boomy. The drums, in the film, Nick Mason is really the feature artist in so many ways. It's focused on him, and then it spreads out to the other three musicians in it, which I kind of like. But the dynamic of the vinyl as well as the Blu-ray is spot on. It's really a great listen. Now, I'm a vinyl guy. I don't know if I really hear a difference dynamically. Usually I enjoy vinyl better. In this case, since it is cinema, since it is a film, a lot of times it's just great to put on this as the music. Now, the content on the Blu-ray. First, you have the feature film. Okay, you have everything on here, and that includes the stuff that was recorded after Pompeii, when they shot in Paris in a studio. Overdubs were added, obviously, to the Pompeii material, the stuff they did in the amphitheater. And then it goes into a section back and forth. It does cut back and forth to Abbey Road Studios, where they were working on what became Dark Side of the Moon. And you see these great overdubs. You see Us and Them, this beautiful Richard Wright's piano tinkling in Us and Them. He has the headphones on, and he's adding the bits. You hear a call back at one point, a talk back from the studio. I think it's Alan Parsons who engineered that album. It's just a wonderful, these pan shots in Abbey Road to see them recording. You have another segment of David Gilmour doing his guitar licks on it too, and something that I don't even remember in the music. When you hear the lunatic is in your head, you don't hear the laugh yet. The in your head crazy laugh hasn't been added in, but you have this little guitar licks that I don't remember. Now I'm going to go listen for it. It's either takes they didn't use, or they were mixed way down. Was it the Great Gig in the Sky, whatever that was. But it's nice to see the teasing of what would become, and the little interview segments, the segments in the canteen, kind of a fluff piece in a way, nothing major. And I've seen pictures of that canteen at Abbey Road because of all these older shots in the very beginning of the Beatles taking their tea breaks and their maybe Chip Buddy breaks or something, breaks at the time when they were recording at Abbey Road. I just love this film, and I think it's extremely successful. Steven Wilson mix is impeccable. better version than the version in here. Also, in terms of the film versions, again, I haven't seen this in full in decades, and there are some things that I misremembered or I didn't remember, but I watched this version again and this version again, and they cut out things from this version to here, which I think for the better. For instance, when they get into echoes, there's images from NASA of rockets taking off, of space shots and things. That's totally gone from this. It's not on this version at all. And I think it makes for a better flow. Also, during echoes on this version, there's some black and white studio versions of Wright and Gilmore singing during echoes, the vocal portion of it. And they cut back to them at the microphone recording in a studio to the location shots. They don't have the studio shots here. I think it flows better. I think it's more jarring sticking that black and white footage in literally in the same verse they're singing a song on echo. So again, it's more successful on here. The Blu-ray comes with a little booklet. Again, all the credits on here. There is no poster, but there is another, there's an interesting photograph of the setup there. I'm going to end up musically because what I like about this, the band is so tight. They're so experimental. I first saw them at Winterland in the fall, I think September of 1972. Echoes was a feature. Axe was a feature. And then they did the entire Dark Side of the Moon probably 6 months before the album came out. And it still sounded great. When there's a time that you went to see one of your favorite bands or a band you like, and they play the entire album before it's out. It doesn't happen very often. And a lot of times that's when people yawn and go for a beer run or something, or smoke a joint or whatever they do. But I remember seeing it. It was most unbelievable things. And the thing, again, that really stuck out for me visually was the gong on stage to the left of the drummer there, Nick Mason. I just think that was brilliant, and that's my sense memory. The end of Echoes, part 2 of Echoes, at the end of the movie, I just think the piano playing, it seems like Rick White was going his piano through a Leslie speaker, it sounded like, you know, the Leslie speakers there, and the really tasteful left channel, really beautiful and melodic soloing of David Gilmour. I mean, I'm not going to, they're all integral. The bass playing of Roger Waters is impeccable on this. And when they're experimenting, you know, just using a big, heavy friggin' slide, like a lap steel slide on his guitar sitting on in the dirt was pretty great. But that end, the little solos, how tasteful his solos. And considering their band that can go from this soft, you know, layer to intense. David Gilmour is one tasty melodic guitar player. There's so much melody in this band that I think a lot of people maybe forget. I've been guilty of that over the years. You hear a thing. There's a lot of, again, avant experimental stuff going on with Saucer Full of Secrets, also especially. But that's it. Is my review a mess? If it is, so be it. I am excited about this music, and I think I do want to thank Sony. I have to say this because someone's going to say, wait a second, Mazzy, what's going on? Sony did reach out to me and sent me the vinyl version and the Blu-ray version after I did that initial video. So I did that all on my own. And then someone said, we saw your video, we'll send you a copy. So thanks, Sony. But I would have bought that. I had it pre-ordered before I got that, that inbox. So thanks again. Careful with that axe, Eugene. Oh, my God. Mazzy loves you. Take care.